we're gonna take a look at another wargaming success story. Namely, they've done another Q&A. Now, in the past, when they've done Q&As, there's been reactions, and people have said rather non-complimentary things in those reactions to wargaming. So obviously, in classic wargaming fashion, they're open to feedback and they like to communicate with the player base. So they disabled the reactions this time. So understandable, because wargaming's communication is so good. So logical reaction is to disable the feedback that they're getting because they don't like it. Makes sense. Sounds exactly like wargaming to me. Right, let's see. Let's see then. What do we have here? Hello, everyone. Today we'll present answers to a first pack of questions, and in a couple days we will return with another one. Okay. Why has work on legendary upgrades halted, and are there any plans for rebalancing existing ones or adding new ones in the next few months? At the moment, quite a few are in need of rebalancing, true, and there are more tier 10 ships without the legendary upgrade than there are with one. Really? Jesus. I remember when they told us that the legendary upgrades were going to be the end game. They told us that was going to be the end game in World of Warships. And then they also said that the missions were going to stay forever, so you didn't need to hurry. And then they had a vote. Do you want us to put the legendary upgrades in the research bureau? And the people voted, like, I think 96% voted no, we don't want it in the research bureau. And then Wargaming was like, thank you for your feedback, we appreciate it. And then they put them in the research bureau anyway and removed the missions. So that was all done in very classic Wargaming fashion, for sure. Very classic Wargaming fashion. That's why when they're promising these new missions for the Missouri that's gonna stay there permanently, I wouldn't buy too much into it. Flamu, I like how I got cancer detected and treated faster than they made new unique upgrade modules. Oh shit, you actually did, didn't you? Holy shit, you actually did. Endgame, by the way. We are currently working on new unique upgrades. However, work on this is carried out with a certain frequency, which is caused by the production process of these upgrades. As such, players shouldn't expect the release of new unique upgrades too often. Usually, we would start working on a unique upgrade for a new brand ship only after a set amount of time has passed since its release. This is necessary so that a large number of players have had enough time to research this particular ship, as well as play a significant number of battles in it. With this information, we can then gather detailed statistics on the ship among all categories of players. We continue analyzing the data on the current state of the ships and prepare to create new unique upgrades, as well as focus on the balancing of those already present in the game. Right now, many of the design ideas for the unique upgrades are in early stage of development, but we will be sure to share more details with you as soon as they're ready. So basically, this was the equivalent of my used toilet paper in terms of what they just said. They didn't actually tell us anything new, except, oh, we're totally working on them. We're totally doing a lot. We can't actually show you anything, and it's all in really early stage, so don't expect anything soon. But we're totally working on them, and we're totally doing a whole lot. But then when you consider that it was, wait, how long ago was it since we had? How long was it since we had? It was. Oh, here you go. I actually made a tweet about this in May. It's been 16 months since we had a new map. They're totally working on new maps, by the way, also, for sure. 271 days since we got the last legendary unique upgrades. This was in May. So, June, July, soon August. Almost 3 months. That's like almost, what, 90 days? We'll say 80 days. So, we're almost at a full year since we had the last legendary unique upgrade. And it's been over 600 days since the Venezia was released. 600 days, almost 2 years since Venezia was released, and it still doesn't have a unique upgrade. A shit ton of premiums have been released though, much more than this though. A lot more premiums than this has been released. So we're talking basically Venezia's been out for 600 days, and we still haven't gotten any news of anything regarding it. Usually we would start working on a unique upgrade for a new ship branch only after a set amount of time. I wonder what the set amount of time is, because the other ships got theirs pretty quickly back when they started this project. Now it's been what? Closing in on 2 years? 625 days. Okay. So so this is basically another case of nothing but bullshit and lies and no promises whatsoever in terms of. Right now, many of the design ideas are in the early stage of development. So basically, don't even ask. That's what they're telling you right now. Calm down. We're totally working on them, but we don't have anything to show you, so stop asking about it. That's what they said. So this is all. The first answer, of course, in classic wargaming fashion, bullshit. Complete bullshit and lies. Nothing of value being given answered here, and all they want is for you to stop asking about them. That's what they're saying. We are currently working on new unique upgrades, but they are very early, so don't ask about them. That's what they wanted to say, but it's all lies, of course. Why, with the potential addition of submarines, has the standard 12 versus 12 format remained? Well, that's because, I can already tell you this, that's because Wargaming doesn't want to invest in better servers, and their current servers can only handle 12 players. Even then, we've had a lot of desync issues, a lot of issues with ships not being where they are, shells not being where they are. The servers are complete shit, and 12 versus 12 is the absolute max we can support. So that's why they never go above that. So that's the real answer. I'm curious to see what the answer Wargaming gives us. Currently, we don't plan to increase the size of teams in the main types of battle, random battles, because of a few reasons. Oh, what's this? Every ship is balanced. Okay. okay, let's say that. Oh, where's my
off to a great
start. Okay, well that was a good start to this answer for sure. Dangerous Day, thank you for the 13. Every ship is balanced around the interaction with a specific number of ships. But that's already a lie. They constantly... Wait, changing the total number of ships on the map would require us to completely reconfigure all ships in the game. Even now, despite our attempts to balance across not only random battles but other battle types as well, the performance of some ships still depends on the amount of players in battle. Well, all of this is complete bullshit to begin with. First of all, they are already actively reconfiguring all ships in the game. The Commander rework did that. That's literally what they did. They reconfigured all the ships, all the builds for them, and also the addition of submarines is already reconfiguring them because they're forced to add anti-submarine warfare mechanics to all the DDs, all the light cruisers, even various battleships. They added a whole new class, and they're reconfiguring all of it. So that's complete bullshit. And then every ship is balanced around a specific number of ships is also bullshit, because they keep changing the numbers between clan battles, their own competitive tournaments. King of the Sea, they bolt that. They're running that's ran 9 versus 9. Ranked is ran 7 versus 7. Seabees is what, 8 versus 8, 7 versus 7, 9 versus 1, depending on their mood. Random battles is 12 versus 12. So this is all bullshit. They change it all the time. So this is just all lies. In addition to the ships themselves, maps and modes which are suited for 12 versus 12 format would also require a complete overhaul if anything were to be changed. But you're already completely overhauling all the maps by designing the underwater terrain to all of them. So this could, once again, this could easily have been done at the same time. This could easily have been done at exactly the same time. They are already overhauling all of them. That's why they haven't released a new map in something like 18 months or something. Like, they got really embarrassed recently. I posted a tweet. Let me see if I can find it, actually. Let's see. Okay, let's see. I posted... where is it? Oh, yeah, I posted this. This was pretty good. I posted... this I posted in April this year. May 2019, Greece announced for 0.4, Crescent's Alpha announced for 0.6, Northern Waters announced for 0.9.1. 15 months since we had a new map. That was in April. Now we're at June, July, soon to be August. Almost at 18 months. Almost 1.5 years since we had... almost 1.5 years since we had a new map. I can't hear You're unqualified. Talking badly about part of the team is poor. Are you no longer getting any benefits? Are you pissed now? Yes, as Aus Berlin, you really nailed it. You nailed it right on the money. I am glad that you're looking out for this multi-million-dollar company, billion-dollar company, because they really need someone to help them out. They need someone in their corner to support them. And I'm glad that you're there so that we can get a balanced conversation, because they are absolutely on your side and they're totally looking out for you. They have a history of being greatly for the consumer and totally not lying. So thumbs up, stand up for them. This is a good hill to die on, defending wargaming. Good luck. So 18 months since we had a new map added to the game, but premiums were getting shit tons. So 18 months, that's the time since we last had a new map. 18 months. But all this time they've spent on overhauling these maps for underwater terrain, yet for some reason they couldn't possibly at the same time make them larger or just make them suitable for 15 players per side. The more ships there are in a battle, the less influence on the outcome each individual player has. We find the level of effective impact that an individual ship has in the 12x12 format to be optimal for random battles. Well, that's just a lot. That's just bullshit, isn't it? They've never cared about any sort of performance statistics or anything like that. Well, you can't speak badly about anything if you're not part of the team. His comment doesn't make any sense, chat. He's a pepega. That's his complete. Like, this is, once again, this is all bullshit. This is all bullshit. The fundamental reason is the servers can't handle it and they're not really willing to invest more money in it. That being said, we're also aware that the matchmaking system may require changes with the addition to submarines. As such, we are now considering additional limitations that would affect multiple classes together. For example, both submarines or destroyers, submarines and aircraft carriers, e.g. no more than 5 destroyers and submarines combined. Because this is the one of the big issues with sub rework or subs being added is there's no surface ships in combat. There's literally nothing to fight. The servers feel empty, they feel abandoned. But I thought every ship is balanced around the interaction with a specific number of ships, but they can still easily change them. Didn't they just say that they can't really do this? Interesting. But this is just bullshit. This is just server issues. I don't know why they can't just say that our servers can't handle it. Probably because they don't want to invest in better servers. In the last Q&A, oh, this is interesting. In the last Q&A, most of the changes suggested by the community, including good players, were dismissed outright as wrong/false by Wargaming staff answering questions. However, weeks after the Q&A session, some of these suggested balance changes were implemented anyway. This begs the question why there is such a communication gap between those answering the Q&A and those who are implementing balance-related changes. For those who aren't aware, the last Q&A was absolutely hilarious when you look at the grand scale of things, because basically everything they said in the Q&A was not just, of course, bullshit and wrong like this time, but they also went back on everything they said. Like, someone asked, when are you going to do something about the Kitakaza? Like, the Kitakaza is clearly ridiculously overpowered for tier 9. And the guy was like, no. We know best. Our balance is great. Kitakaza is perfectly fine. And then I think it was 2 weeks after that Q&A, they nerfed the Kitakaza. So basically everything they said was just... it had no substance. It was complete bullshit. So what is their answer here? Actually, in the case of questions feedback related to the balance of ship, there is no communication gap. When answering any questions about the balance of the game, we always consult with our balance team in order to share the most relevant information with our players. There is no communication gap? Did Wargaming just say this? Did Wargaming just say there is no communication gap? This is a company that has effectively used the words communication problem as their bullshit get out of jail free card for the past fucking 6 years. Every time, every single time they do some scam, they try to cheat players of their money, they do some horrendous fucking bullshit, they always say, oh, I'm sorry, it was a communication problem. We didn't communicate clearly. Oh no, communication for sure. Every time. Look, I'm not even making that up. Look, we can look at their own fucking responses. Let me see. Look, fuck, let's. What are the most recent? Okay, most recent one is Yukon. Yukon is the most recent one. Then we had the Godzilla versus Kong. What else did we have? What are pretty recent ones? Santa Containers. That was, and Puerto Rico. These were all pretty big ones. Right? Yeah, okay. Let's see. Okay, let's start. What were the words on Yukon? Dear community, while the investigation into the situation is still ongoing, one thing is clear. We put it mildly messed up. My team mishandled the communications around this project. We then failed to properly communicate. We must review all communications. This is Wargaming's favorite word when they fuck up. Let's see, Godzilla versus Kong. What is this? We understand that this might not have been clear from the descriptions in the article and shop bundles, so we will update these texts in a week or less. Wow! Thank you. Apologize for any confusion. Wow, that sounds like a communications problem. Santa Containers? We've received a lot of questions. This was when they tried to scam people by the putting guaranteed ships. Like they didn't tell you that there was a list of ships that you were gonna get. What did it say? Blah blah. Okay, edit commanders. Let's just clarify. This was an unfortunate miscommunication on our side. Wow. Unfortunate, for sure. Very unfortunate. This just, wow. How often do these unfortunate communication errors just keep happening, man? Truly. What about... Oh, this was Puerto Rico. Let's see. In hindsight, it is clear that our communication about this event was rather poor. This has been Wargaming's get out of jail free card that they pull every fucking year. Every time, well, not every year, multiple times per year. Every time they try to fucking bullshit us, they always go back, oh, you know what happened? It was the communication. Unfortunate. Another, like, let's go. How far back can we go? What's like the oldest scam that they tried? How long back? What's the oldest scam that they tried? Chat, what's the oldest scam Wargaming tried to pull on us? Missouri? No, that's Christmas convoys. Yeah, what they're called? Yeah, Santa convoys. That was what, in 2016. Let's see, Santa convoy response. Okay. Oh, here we go. Let's see, who's this? This is what in 2016. We hope the holiday season was enjoyable for you, and we sincerely apologize for the lack of proper communication. This is when they literally released 2 different videos to the different fucking servers. They released when. Oh, that's normal. This is. Not now, woman. This is literally when they if you went on the EU server, if you went on the EU website and looked at the patch notes, you'd get a different video than the video you got on the NA server. They literally edited a different video where they hid that there was something called a Santa Christmas convoy. And the reason for this was the EU server was much bigger and they wanted to grow the NA server, but they wanted EU to pay for it. So they literally edited 2 different videos and released them on the different pages intentionally. And what was their excuse afterwards? Communication problem. Unfortunate, truly. How unfortunate. Another communication problem. So this is literally a company that has been using this for as long as I can remember. Every time they try to scam the player base, every time they give us some fucking complete horseshit, their answer is always, communication problem. But when someone asks them, do you perhaps have a bit of a communication problem? They're like, no, how dare you? Us? No, we have, no. Wasn't the Sir Fuck shit show blamed on communication? Yeah, everything they do is always blamed on communication problems. But when someone asks, do you perhaps have a communication problem? Delusional. Gulag. Never happened. Never happened. Crazy talk. No communication gaps in this company for sure. Okay, what's this one? Okay, whoa, this is a big one. Let's see. Holy shit. Hello? You keep claiming that you take statistics as well as player feedback into account when balancing ships. Yet there appears to be a distinct lack of acting upon feedback I commonly see from top level players, ones who are most qualified. Okay, what does my woman want? En tiedä, ehkä. Okay, let's see. There appears to be a distinct lack of acting upon feedback I commonly see from top players, ones who are most qualified to identify balance and gameplay issues. Many other high-profile games such as Dota, LoL, CSGO, TF2, Overwatch, Rainbow Six successfully incorporate top player feedback in a way that they make targeted changes to equipment or characters in a way that makes them not overperform at the highest level of play while also being reasonably well balanced for the rest of the player base. Yes, this is called balancing the game, something Wargaming doesn't really like. This is why we have shit like King of the Sea with 7 Petropavlovsk per team, because Wargaming couldn't even comprehend the idea that in the hands of a good player that ship was completely fucking broken. So that's not exactly surprising. This begs the following question. Do you consider top player feedback more valuable than average player feedback, or even valuable at all for that matter? And are there any plans to involve them more into your balancing process? At least consider this approach for tier 10 ships if you intend to hold further competitive events with tier 10 ships. Your recent acquisition of the King of the Sea tournament is another argument for this. Good question. Really good question. Well formulated question. Let's see how they ignore this one. We evaluate player feedback from various sources. While it may indeed be true that the players who share feedback do tend to be the most involved and skilled players, we take all levels of feedback into account, not only from our testers, but from all our players. Oh yeah, they really listen to feedback, for sure. That's what they're known for. Although we listen to feedback from top players, we cannot say that it is more important than any other feedback. Opinion of any individual player is equally valuable to us. So basically, a 35% win rate potato, it has exactly as much value. A guy who doesn't know what radar is, he thinks it's a cheat. A guy who doesn't know how Hydra works. A guy who probably rams into every island he sees and does 20k average damage and 30% win rate. His answer is as highly rated by Wargaming as a super unicum who's basically spent 20,000 games perfecting every ship and knowing their strengths and weaknesses upside down. And Wargaming values these equally. It's mind-numbingly stupid, of course, but it explains a lot. We take into account constructive criticisms from all players who are willing to share it with us. Well, to be fair, it's more like we ignore all players equally. That's probably more accurate. To further elaborate on this, okay, we invite players to participate in both the public test and main server tests of ships, referred to as production test protests, and fill out surveys accordingly. Additionally, we collect feedback from the main platforms of our community. I've been a CC, I've never actually seen them do anything with these. Keep in mind that when they had all the CCs over, from all over the world, they had them over in St. Petersburg, EU, NA, Russia, Asia CCs, all of them, every single CC told them that Smolensk is overpowered, a terrible design for the game, and shouldn't be included. And all of them also, we filled in these tests and we filled up in these surveys and we gave the feedback and we did all of this. And Wargaming, of course, they looked at it, they were like, thank you, CCs, very important feedback, thank you. And Smolensk was released exactly as it was tested, without any changes, because they wanted money. So, zero faith in anything they say. Among our test groups, we have had clan and super test groups for many years. They've also blackmailed clan and super test groups to do what they want. For example, when was it BFK or was doing those CV hunting groups, he basically got blackmailed that they would be removed from the CST if they didn't stop hunting CVs. There was that, and then who else was it? There was some other group that also had issues. They were being blackmailed. So this is like their hook that they use to make people do what they want. Representing almost every group of players, from the most skillful and involved players to the not so experienced ones. Their feedback is extremely valuable to us. These players participate not only in the standard super tests of new updates, but also in various tests of concepts and new features for the game. It was Citizen 9? I think it was that. See, concept features for the game. BFK, Spectrum, true. A long while ago, Dort was told he wasn't allowed to play with two of his friends anymore or he would be removed. Yeah, I know. I mean, they use it as blackmail. That's what they do. It's their hook to make good players do what they want. But also in various tests of concepts and new features for the game. The reaction and feedback of these testers to new concepts have a significant impact on our decision on how we will work with the feature mechanic. Oh, significant impact. In addition, we periodically hold additional recruitment for closed test groups, and any players, including top ones, can apply there in order to participate in the process of testing and balancing the ships and other content. We usually publish news about this. And getting back to the topic of top players, a good example would be King of the Sea. Throughout such tournaments, which the strongest players take part in, our colleagues work closely with the tournament organizers to adjust specific rules and format limitations to be the most suitable for top players, since it won't always be representative for our normal game modes. While not necessarily related to discussion of ship balance, we can also discuss our interactions with top and other skill level players, using clan battles as an example. We work closely with players on the results of clan battles and send them surveys. In particular, we are interested in their opinion of the matchmaking system, both the speed and the quality of the selection of opponents. These two are related characteristics, and it is the utmost importance to find a balance that suits both ourselves and our players. We also use the results of these surveys to select new maps. Through the use of polls, we find out how much players like a certain feature that we have introduced. Why do they ignore all our polls then if they are so important? I know Flamba's made a poll and I've made a poll, and there's been a couple of polls where people ask how much they enjoy CVs in random battles. And or in battles in general, and every vote has been like 90% hates CVs. Funny how those polls aren't very important, I guess. Interesting. And feature sub would be well received, but strongly worried about this UX part, user interface part. If there would truly be an intuitive interface. The survey shows that the vast majority of players using the feature quickly figured it out. Players in surveys often give suggestions, and we're eternally grateful for these. That being said, the idea of restrictions on certain ships during the season was ultimately made in part to feedback from players. On a related note, you'll be interested to see how we have responded to feedback regarding CVs in clan battles. Oh, I am very curious to see this. To put it simply, we have made adjustments over the past few seasons based on feedback, and player evaluations of seasons with CVs are now close to the evaluations of seasons without CVs. However, we're still working on this aspect of clan battles. I actually saw this earlier, and I thought this was the funniest line of bullshit I've ever seen, because they say that to give, well, there's a really good picture actually that sums it as. Here we go. Let's see. Here it is. This is their answer. On a related note, you'll be interested to see how we have responded to feedback regarding CVs in clan battle. What has the feedback actually looked like? Well, every single top player, at one point, the top 3 players in Hurricane on EU all renamed their clans to no CV, fuck them all, CV out, no to CVs in competitive, and ban CV, keep CVs and subs out. These were the top 3 Hurricane clans on EU. They all renamed this. So the top player feedback regarding CVs has been pretty clear. I don't think there's like a lot of question on what the general opinion on CVs is. Is it maybe a yes, maybe a no? No, it's pretty obvious. Fuck them all. So what is Wargaming's response? Well, the next clan battle season that is starting August 18th in about 3 weeks will be 7 versus 7 in tier 6 ships. And there can be no more than 2 aircraft carriers or battleships per team. And they banned Graf Spee. That's their response. They banned Graf Spee, but you can have double CV. So 7 versus 7 at tier 6, where there's basically no AA, and you can have 2 CVs per side. That's their how much they cared about all that feedback and how much they valued all that feedback. So, yeah. Honestly, it's. I think it's kind of hilarious because it's so absurd. I think I think it's kind of hilarious because there's a level of what they say and then what they do, and it's like you're digging a hole, looking down, like what the fuck are you doing? Like holy shit! Like it's not even on the same page. It's not even like anywhere near each other. And another similar question. Why are you so secretive about sharing detailed ship statistics? Well, let me turn this on. Detailed ship statistic when asked about statistical proof of your stance on certain ships' balance. Because then they would add, because then people would know it's bullshit. Players often judge a ship's power based on statistics available to the entire WoW's community via third-party websites. Typically, ship win rate, ship kill-to-death ratio, average damage, average experience, average frags, total number of battles are the common metrics available on this site. However, in past presentations, wargaming developers have discussed different metrics used for balancing such as ship effectiveness versus class and ship win rate versus player win rate. What objective metrics are used by wargaming when balancing ships? Do the metrics typically agree with the player base? For example, do the metrics show Kaba and Zhao as underperforming? Do the metrics show Petro as overperforming? And finally, is there a threshold in the metrics which will cause the team to look into rebalancing of ships? Good question. Some ships are balanced frequently, while others remain unchanged for years. It would be great to hear your insights on this. Okay, okay, big text. We rarely share stats because they are fairly complex. They are a fairly complex internal tool for balancing ships. So what? Why couldn't they share the stats anyway? They are a fairly complex internal tool. That's not an answer. That's like too complex for you guys. You wouldn't understand. You wouldn't understand. It's too complex, guys. We can't share it. When preparing a ship to go live, many different factors and indicators are taken into account. It's important that we not only communicate these stats, but also that we do it in the most convenient and digestible form while providing thorough explanations. What? In general, this has been a possibility we've explored, and sometimes we do indeed share our data with players. But since this requires a significant investment of time and resources, we do not plan to do it often. But potential earnings are an important statistic. That's what I'm thinking as well. They don't want to share the earning thing. That being said, I'm certain that we can share more information about the balancing of our ships in the future. Oh, I'm certain you will. You wouldn't lie to your player base? No. The story of what metrics we use for balancing is a topic for a separate discussion. Long story short, we take into account the percentage of wins, absolute damage, relative damage, average number of destroyed ships, interactions with key areas, potential damage, analyzing how a ship plays against each class of ships, and significant amount of other statistics. So this sounds like exactly the same stats that we're looking at. Win rate, damage depending on skill level, how many kills, kill to death ratio, cap interaction, aka base XP. So this is the exact same we look at on the other sides. On evaluation of the ship, our evaluation of the ship does coincide to some extent with that of the players, and to some extent it does not. For example, Zal and Khabarovsk are both within the norm in terms of combat effectiveness. Khabarovsk became very effective after the limitation on damage from large calibers. Doubt. And Zhao is one of the leaders in terms of number of battles played on her. Zhao is one of the leaders in terms of the number of battles played on her. Zhao has been around since 2015. Like even when the game went into open beta, I'm pretty sure Zhao was already part of the game. It was added before the Des Moines, wasn't it? So it's the oldest tier 10 cruiser in the game. So of course the number of battles played on her is going to be high. This is fucking mind-numbingly dumb. Holy shit. How can you balance a ship based on the number of battles that it had accumulated by being the longest standing ship in the game? And why is popularity a balancing term? Like, this kind of dumb shit is why CVs are the way they are. Because they're a boring class to play and not very interesting, so people aren't that interested. So they're not popular, so Wargaming buffs them. That's the kind of dumb shit we're seeing right here. Holy shit, that's dumb. Zhao is one of the leaders in terms of number of battles played on her. What the fuck is that? What? So... So they look at number of battles played total, and they balance. This is more important than the win rate. This is what this is not important, but it's down here. It's more important that it's up here. Oh my, wow. I mean, I shouldn't be even be surprised by their stupidity anymore, but the fact that they that's one of the balancing factors. That explains so many of their balancing decisions, like just CVs in general. And you know that this is a really bad sign for submarines, because submarines are pretty damn boring to play. Submarines are fundamentally not fun to play. Submarines are just terribly boring to play. So they're probably going to get buffed to shit because no one is going to play them, because they're the new class as well, so they're going to get really fast buffing treatment. What is that? Most played ships? Which one of those is played ships of those stats? Yeah, that was pretty fucking far from being much played. Yikes. Okay, well that was... I expected a lot of stupidity, but honestly that isn't even haha, that's funny stupid. That's just really stupid. Jesus. This may sound rather obvious, but you can always get an indication of which ships we consider to have statistics outside of our normal range by checking balance changes in the patch notes. Yes, because they have been so good. At the same time, we try not to touch the ships. Like, what was the reason why they nerfed the Maas? The Leberecht Maas? They nerfed the reload from 4 seconds to 4.2. Like, what? At the same time, we try not to touch the ships that are within the normal range, even if there's a slight deviation. This is so as not to unnecessarily change the game experience on a particular ship. Fluctuations of the win rate and efficiency of ships is normal. The game does not stand still. New mechanics are added. The popularity of ships changes due to the additions of a new branch, and there are of course changes in the meta. Therefore, there can be some fluctuations of win rate efficiency within a single iteration of a ship, even if she herself was not changed. If you see that the ship is steadily underperforming or outperforming in her tier for multiple subsequent patches, we start fixing it. Though this is not a process that happens gradually over the course of several updates, so there are no drastic changes to the gameplay of the ship. Coreforce is still really popular. Coreforce is never going to get buffed, is it? A lot of people still play Coreforce. So it's actually never going to get buffed, isn't it? I think Bismarck is one of the most played ships as well. The Germans are never going to get a buff because they're popular. Unfortunate. This calculated, measured approach allows us not to make unnecessary... This calculated, measured approach allows us not to make unnecessary changes. That's a fucking double negative. allows us not to make unnecessary changes. There are exceptions when either major changes are necessary or when it is impossible to make minor changes. For example, to reduce the attacking flight, you cannot remove a quarter or half of an aircraft. Yeah, but you can nerf the damage. What? This approach applies to ships that are already available to all players. Test ships by nature are sometimes changed drastically. This is because their true effectiveness can be analyzed and understood only during testing on the main server, but not during the design and testing phases on the internal all public test servers. During these test phases, we always consider two main options: either bring the current concept to the desired effectiveness or change it drastically enough. This depends on the feedback from testers and on statistics. Jesus. This is oof. Oof. You said a while back that you don't want to implement limitations to CV spotting because it would confuse players. Yet there are render delay and minimap render only mechanics in the game already, which very few seem to complain about, which makes your reasoning pretty poor. Not to mention, many top-level players have provided feedback that spotting is one of their biggest culprits. Do you see CV spotting as a problem that needs solving at all? And in connection to that, is it technically possible to test limited CV spotting, such as minimap only or render delayed in brawls? Funny how that's never been tested on live. They always say that it doesn't work based on internal testing, but they're never willing to test it on live, which is always amusing to me. While we do acknowledge that CV spotting could be improved, we don't see it as a critical problem right now, of course not, especially considering the recent changes to attack aircraft. Concerning this, our position on spotting has not changed. Carriers have excellent capabilities to detect enemy ships and can be overly effective in this regard. Yep, especially in competitive. Yep, that's why everyone wants to abandon it, and that's why people hate the fact that you're listening to the feedback and still making next clan battle season a double CV season, you imbeciles. We are engaged in this issue, I can tell. However, recent tests of changes in the spotting mechanics have not yielded the desired results. The mechanics in the game should be simple and clear to everyone, and testing has shown that our latest ideas did not cope with this task and made the gameplay unnecessarily complicated. I'm sure it did. To be as transparent as possible, we'll list a few of the mechanics that we have tested in an effort to fix this issue. We have been testing changes relating to the detectability of destroyers depending on whether the AA defense is on or off. In theory, these kinds of mechanics should have greatly reduced the detectability of destroyers that were committed to turning off their AA defense. However, the usage of this feature was not the most obvious, and it quickly became an inconvenience to most players, which made it impossible to add to the game in its current state. More details about this mechanic in particular can be found in our devlog. Wait, was this where they punished you for turning the AA on? Was this where they tried adding that dumb bloom? Or what is this? This is the one where your AA was really shit if you turned it on. Was it that the one? You had like an 8-second penalty or something? Like this was just trash. This wasn't actually helping. It was kind of terrible. Your AA needed to ramp up to full effectiveness or something. It was terrible. Where they're blaming the players for their terrible implementation. That's the one that nerfed like all AA ships like Holland into the ground because it was so junk. That was a terrible idea. Holy shit! No wonder it didn't work. It was trash. You maintain detect as if you shot. Yeah. They're blaming the players for the terrible implementation. Okay. We conducted minimap spotting tests. Many players and developers alike thought that this would be a good solution, but it didn't work. Why not? For most players, this change added a significant amount of ships to the battle that were detected only on the minimap. Oh no! Players could not see or interact with these ghost ships, while an allied carrier engaged in combat with these would appear to be attacking water. Of course, such mechanics would indeed suit the most experienced players who are familiar with spotting mechanics, but this felt very awkward and counterintuitive for the majority of test participants. Therefore, for the time being, we have decided to abandon this idea until we find a way to eliminate all of the negative elements of such mechanics or get an alternative solution. Hello? Hello? Cyclone? Hello? Storms? Hello? This mechanic is already in the game. It's literally already there. Every single surface ship has already experienced this every time a cyclone hits. You only see 8 km away, and you see ships shooting each other. You see shells striking ghost ships left, right, and center. And there's render issues. There's render issues relating to storms. This is already in the game. Who were these players who were so confused by this? The players who could not see or interact with these ghost ships. And what do you mean could not see or interact? You can shoot them. You can shoot the fucking minimap outline, just like you shoot ships that are behind islands that you can't see, or you shoot ships in cyclones, or what the hell? If you're not already weren't using it, it doesn't change anything for the potatoes. There is no gap in communication, don't forget. For sure not. Who exactly was confused? This is already in the game. This is the dumbest thing. How come they always, every time this is brought up, they're always like, oh, we did so many internal tests on this. It didn't work. Unfortunate, but trust us, we really tried to make it work. But it didn't work, man. Too confused. Too confused. I think this is just bullshit again. They're just bullshit. That's what it is. The funny thing is, Flamu is calling out Wargaming for doing good stuff also. It's just not as balanced as you would hope to. What? Are you also one of those guys who would be really confused during a cyclone? So when a cyclone hits plots that you just go around going, oh, there's ghosts everywhere! I don't understand! What is going on? Ah! Is that what happens every time a cyclone hits? Like, that's the dumbest excuse I've ever seen. I really want to know who these test participants are, because obviously they're not the brightest bulb. Wargaming don't play their own game. It makes sense their internal testing was confused by ghost ships, right? We also considered the idea of spotting with a delayed rendering, as is the case of radar consumable. But tests have shown that such mechanics have no significant effect on CV spotting. Therefore, we are in search of new possible solutions. Didn't they just give us a whole talk about how you can't test things? This is because their true effectiveness can be analyzed and understood only during testing on the main server, but not during the design and testing phase on the internal. Like, they literally just discredited their internal and public testing phases. They just discredited them here, and then here they take one of the most requested mechanics people have asked for and said, oh, we tested them all internally and it just didn't work out, so we scrapped them all. Hello? Am I the only one who sees a slight bit of logical problem here? Right. While it is technically possible to test a variety of mechanics in different battle types, we should only do this when we have a solution prepared for whatever issue may arise. What? What do you mean? You haven't done that once. Hello, CV rework? How could you doing 550k damage on release day because you hadn't tested, like, it was a fucking shit show? People despawning fighter planes, like ignoring AA. What was that mechanic called where you dropped? What the hell was it called? That whole mechanic that Euro made a video on. Like, there were so many goddamn issues. It was a complete shit slingshot mechanic. Yeah, like, there was 55 different bugs and issues and mechanics that didn't work. And subs are going to be exactly the same, aren't they? And they still don't have a solution prepared for the CV problem. It's been, what, 2 years since CV rework? Hello? Ian translation. Excuse me, but would it be possible to make the American battleships faster? Wow, what a great question for sure, after all of these questions. For Tier 6, we have 28 knots among the French, among 18 the Americans, and until Tier 7, the American battleships are slow. I understand you perfectly. Coincidentally, my Vermont never reached the battle area while I was writing this answer. My teammate, for sure. We're trying to maintain a variety of approaches to ship customization, especially so that each of our players can find the gameplay both interesting and personalized to them. US battleships also found their audience here. The speed of US battleships is not only part of the original concept of the implementation of these ships into the game, blah 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 blah. Okay, but like this is what I don't like that. What a waste of a question. Why would they pick that one? US battleships will be affected by meta changes or other factors, blah 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 blah. Yeah. These are the cherry-picked answers or cherry-picked questions, like what? I love that they quoted realism, historical context, but also an important aspect of their historical context. Meanwhile, Soviet carriers coming to World of Warships, best cruiser still Petropavlovsk, tankiest battleship still Kremlin. Historical context, by the way. Oh my god. We all know that if a ship is too popular, it is bound to be nerf removed from the shop. Examples would be Smolensk, Smoland, Thunder. What about the not so popular ships, i.e. Yuyang and Khabarovsk? How few games needs to be played in order for the extremely unpopular ships, like previously mentioned, would it take for Wargame to look into said ship might need a buff and is in fact not balanced well enough? Blah blah blah. Well, what is this? Blah 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 blah. Okay, so they're not popular at all either. We regularly evaluate all ships and make balance adjustments as needed. Okay, if you say so. Popularity is one of the main metrics that we pay attention to. I wish another dev would buy World of Warships, because World of Warships can be such a great game, but having this dev in charge, man, having this dev in charge is yikes. Popularity is one of the main metrics that we pay attention to. Low or excessively high popularity of a ship is a reason to analyze its effectiveness in detail. You know, Bismarck is one of the most popular ships. That thing might even get nerfed based on this. Why was Submarine removed then? Yeah, why was Smoland removed? Smoland wasn't actually even that popular. The outlying case would be if the ship is both strong and unpopular, in which case we can't just give it a boost, we would need to rebalance it entirely. At the same time, we're also comfortable with having niche ships, ones that are not particularly popular, but with an interesting gameplay for a certain group of players. All of these principles also apply to entire branches of ships. For example, French cruisers were extremely unpopular among our players. To solve this problem, we tested a modified concept by adding a reload booster to these ships, and we were completely satisfied with the results. But I mean, they were shit. That was the issue. They didn't have damage output, and the reload booster gave them a shit ton of damage output. I mean, These cruisers became distinctive and interesting ships for our audience. I wouldn't say that. How many Henrys do you see these days? Like, I only see really, really good players occasionally play a Henry. And then they nerfed it after this, didn't they? They did this, they added the reload booster, and then they nerfed the acceleration on it. So the original gimmick of speed went out the window. Huh, interesting. Speaking specifically about Khabarovsk and Yuyang, the situation is as follows. Khabarovsk is quite an unpopular ship among other researchable destroyers. However, it has unique, non-standard gameplay that does not suit every player, but those who do play her to fullest potential show excellent results. The ship now has great combat performance indicators such as win rate, average damage, KD ratio. I mean, people who play it to meme it. Because ultimately the French ones are so much better. Both Kleber and Marceau are just better. So, what? Even Mogador, yeah. Better buff club after this Q&A. How much how is it unique though? Compared to like just range mode Kleber farming or Marceau? Questionable. The situation with Yu Yang is more complicated. It's also quite unpopular among the other researchable destroyers. This is partly due to the fact that its performance is now approaching the lower boundaries of the normal range. In the near future, we will continue to additionally monitor this ship specifically and analyze whether it needs balance changes. I mean, the ship is junk. And I mean, the thing was, Yu Yang was never actually overpowered either. It wasn't particularly powerful either. The thing is, it was a radar DD, and it was the only radar DD. And people didn't actually play it in randoms. People played it in comp, because it was the only radar DD. So you would run radar YY to outspot the enemy DD and get a lot of damage in on him. That was the meta, and everyone spammed it in comp, and that's why they nerfed it. And of course, in classic wargaming fashion, they didn't actually nerf the problem, which was the radar, but they nerfed everything else on it. They nerfed the gun reload and they nerfed the torpedo reload, but the Yu Yang radar stayed the same. So in comp, people still played it exactly the same. They used it to outspot the other DD. But in random battles, people got completely fucked. So this was a classic case of completely ignoring the good players and balancing it like apes. And then they released the small one later, and the rest is history. But like, that was one of the best examples of just completely ignoring the good players, because they didn't even look into why are good players playing the Yu Yang, and the reason was because of the radar. So they nerfed everything except the radar, and they kept playing it. It was so goddamn dumb. Like, so absolutely, like, just listen to your goddamn community for once. Jesus. But now YY is a shit show because there's so many competitions, and there's so many things that can fuck it over. And like, did the devs ever watch a game replay? I don't know. And once again, they just earlier they told us how important popularity is, and popularity is one of the main metrics. And right here, these two example ships, they're like both unpopular, but we won't actually do anything. This one we're gonna monitor it. Everything they say all contradicts. Have you guys noticed that? Every answer, they say one thing, then they contradict themselves in the next question. It's the same as the last Q&A. There's no consistency. Consider this both as feedback as a question. Why was Dutch cruiser balance subjected to airstrikes so much? Disclaimer, I'm a tester, so I have a decent idea of what I'm talking about. These ships are weak and unenjoyable to play. True, they should be buffed to an acceptable, enjoyable power level while still keeping them subpar compared to their peers, and only then should airstrike be fine-tuned to fit in. Yes. Right now, there's way too much emphasis on the airstrike, which isn't even that strong or consistent. Exactly. They're balanced around their gimmick. Another similar question, why do you always seem to balance ships around their gimmick instead of the other way around? Is there a reason for doing this? One of our main goals in developing ships is not only to create new ships, but also bring variety to the gameplay. After all, if it doesn't change, it will quickly become stagnant and bore our players. Will it though? Will it quickly become stagnant if we don't get a shit ton of gimmicks in the game all the time? And why do they seem to consider planes as variety? Planes and radar, that's their variety. Have you guys noticed that? Every new battleship they release is radar. Borodino, Constellation, like all this, they're bringing back Missouri. The battleship gimmick is radar. The cruiser gimmick is planes. Tone, and now the Dutch things, and the Seven Provinciën. Like, do you understand that there's other ways to add variety besides planes and the most oppressive consumable? This is why we customize new ships not around gimmicks per se, but around the gameplay concept, aka around the gimmick. This is the gameplay concept is literally the gimmick. Okay. If you balance ships only around the things, standard things like main caliber, armor, detectability, etc., then the ships themselves would be standard and largely the same, meaning that gameplay would stand still. No? There are still various ways you can fiddle with things. In this standardized meta, all of their special features would be sidelined and turned to be extremely weak, as the ships would otherwise be too effective, truly reducing their additional gameplay dynamics to gimmicks. Muskrat, thank you for the 42. Oh, he got mad that they were called a gimmick. But I mean, right now the fucking airstrike is a gimmick. Going back to Dutch cruisers, the airstrike is their main feature, and this in turn distinguishes them gameplay-wise from other ships. The first thing we had to do when developing these ships was to make sure that the airstrike was set up and worked as intended. So the first thing they did, they actually designed the ship around the airstrike. First thing we had to do when developing these ships was to make sure the airstrike was set up and worked as intended. This is like an A-10. They build the ship around the gun. But in this case, they built the ship around the airstrike. Or sorry, A-10, they built the plane around the gun. Despite these unique mechanics, we take all characteristics into account when balancing these ships. As such, these ships also have good armor and detectability range and decent air defense. It's too early to draw conclusions about their overall combat effectiveness, as the early access is not over yet, but judging by the feedback, many players have very warmly received these ships. That's all for today. You can expect another pack of answers in a couple of days. Many players have very warmly received these ships. I haven't heard a single good player like these ships. So many players with 40% win rate. Keep in mind, they told us earlier that they value feedback exactly the same. So all the good players find it shit, potatoes find it good. It balances out that, hey, it's pretty good. And Wargaming is happy. Warmly received equals paid for them, right? That's really another issue with these new ships. I think they get a lot of skewed feedback on a lot of their new ships because people have to spend doubloons to get them. So you're a guy who bought a ship just using credits and XP. He can call, if a ship is bad, he can probably be pretty objective and say this ship is pretty bad. But the guy who just spent potentially hundreds of dollars to buy the doubloons and spent those doubloons to unlock the ship, he doesn't want to say that the product he just spent a shit ton of money on is shit. Sunk cost fallacy is very real, and people often defend the product they've spent money on. So you're gonna get a lot of nonsense feedback. I think because I see that very often. I got it on the 50th pack and I think it's really good, and it's like, I mean, I think that's actually affecting it quite a bit. Jesus. Oh my god. Well, that was Q&A episode 1. Q&A episode 1. My god. Let me zoom out my Discord again. Did we get any actual good answers? Did we get anything positive out about that? CV Spotting, they told us, oh, we tested it and sorry, it doesn't work at all. We tested it internally, which we said earlier is not reliable, but honestly it doesn't work, so we scrapped the whole idea. Popularity is a really strong thing in terms of balancing. Zao is fine apparently because it's been played a lot over 5 years, so Zao is fine. They have no communication issues inside the company. Keep that in mind the next time they try to scam you and they get called out and turns out there was a communication issue. What else? What else? That was pretty much it. Honestly, there wasn't really a whole lot. They didn't really did they actually give us anything of value from this? Did we actually get anything of value from this? Legendary upgrades are totally being worked on, by the way. They've been worked on this entire time, and they're totally being worked on, but don't ask about them. Submarines, sorry, a lot of reasons why we can't have 12 versus 12. Totally, more than 12 versus 12. Totally not related to the servers being shit. We ignore feedback. Well, actually, no, sorry. We value all feedback equally, but we know what that means. And that's pretty much it. There wasn't really a whole lot else here. Oh, and Kaba and YY. Popularity is really important, but in terms of Kaba and YY, it's not that important after all. And we might balance YY. Kaba is fine, apparently. That was kind of a kind of a waste of time.